We've heard many countries, France, the UK, Australia, all saying that they will recognize a Palestinian state. This was in response, of course, to a smear campaign, what Prime Minister Netanyahu called a smear campaign of famine and such in Gaza. And now that Hamas has accepted a deal, how will the international community react now that Israel is the one seemingly rejecting this deal and forging ahead with the war? And how could this impact their reaction, impact Israel's operations on the ground?
So I term this policy by Europeans, by Britain, by Australia, by the Canadians of recognizing a Palestinian state. I see this as destructive. I see it as problematic. I think, though they might have good intentions, we can give them the benefit of the doubt. What they're actually doing is quite harmful, and I'll explain why. The only way to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza is this American-led track through the mediators from Qatar and from Egypt. The Europeans, the Australians, the Canadians, the Brits, they're almost irrelevant. In fact, I'll say they are irrelevant in that process. But instead of supporting the process led by the Americans in an unequivocal way, they're putting other things on the table, creating confusion. It's almost like crying children who want to say, pay attention to me, I'm here. But what they're actually doing is, if you're Hamas and you're debating whether to accept the Israeli-American ceasefire proposals and so forth, to accept a negotiated solution, if you're hearing from Europe, if you're hearing from Australia, if you're hearing from Britain that there's a ceasefire going to be imposed on Israel from the outside, why would you release a single hostage? Why would you agree to a ceasefire? If you think you can just grit your teeth and hold on, and eventually the international community will force Israel to unequivocally agree to a ceasefire without any conditions, why should Hamas make any concessions in the negotiations? That's why it's so destructive, and that's why I call this group of countries, I call their policies, it's the ire of the impotent. They have no input on policy. They're only here now causing trouble.